Wealthies, welcome back. If you're new here, this is All the Wealth, Wealthmore's wealth building channel. I'm McCall John Lee Swite, your host and CEO of Wealthmore. Today we are here for a special thank you to our first 1,000 subscribers. Thank you for tuning in. We are here sharing insights, tips into how to build wealth, and you guys subscribed and are tuning in, and we are so very grateful. As a reminder, you can always download the Wealthmore app. Community is free and get even more insights and tips. And of course, you're welcome to invest with us and work directly one-on-one with one of our wealth advisors, who many of you have already met through our channel. In celebration of our first 1,000 subscribers, here's a look back to our first 9 episodes. It's never been perfect, but it's always been about getting the message, the insights, and the tips out to you guys. Download the app. Stay tuned for more. Thank you guys. All the wealth. And as we always do, we bring you the facts. So the reality is the richest Americans own the vast majority of the U.S. stock market, and that is according to Fed data. The top 10% of Americans hold 93% of all stocks, and this is the highest level ever recorded.
And then there was this perception, at least especially during COVID, right, that there was a lot more participation in the market, right? The regular folks were more inclined to start investing, even if it was in small amounts. And certainly the platforms have made it accessible, right? It's much easier to actually place the trade, have an account. But clearly that's not moving the needle in any meaningful way.
The wealthy understand that the best returns, or some of the best returns to be had on their money, is by investing in the stock market. And then they have another thing that helps them tremendously, is they have the benefit of getting wealth advice. The wealthy are playing and leveraging the markets. They are putting their money at work. I like to say that my money should be working harder than I work. And I can only...
That's the goal.
You know, I need sleep, but my equities don't.
They really
don't. And I want to encourage you guys to not have lazy money. Lazy money does not serve you.
You mentioned housing as well. Of course, housing is covered in the military. You can either stay on base or you can live off base and get a housing allowance. That's a big benefit because if you decided to purchase a home, you can get a mortgage, and basically the military is paying off your mortgage with the housing allowance.
Mortgage.
Yeah. Going to supersede what you put in your will, which a lot of people don't realize. There's been so many documented issues where people were like, well, I named this person in my will, that's great, but on your 401k was someone else. So you always want to make sure everything aligns with what your wishes are. So you can always put someone down now, and also a contingent beneficiary, which means a backup person or persons. You can always do that and change it at any point in time.
Yeah.
It's not set in stone.
It says, according to the Path to Purchase Institute, so there's actually an institute out there, it studies Americans' buying behaviors. 92% of Americans have made an impulse purchase at any given point. You might say, okay, well, 92, right? Okay, there's a little even more. To the point about the online shopping, right? Her survey found that 79% of in-store shoppers make an impulse purchase, and 58% of online shoppers. So at least online, there's a little bit of buffer versus when you're in the store, but still 92% of us are making these impulse buys. Matthew, can you tell folks like what the S&P 500 is? Yeah.
The S&P 500 generally covers the largest 500 U.S. companies that are publicly traded. Now, not every large company is going to be in the S&P 500. There's some criteria to get in. And the biggest thing that I think people miss about the S&P is that it's market cap weighted. It's not an equal weight.
Yeah.
You own 500 companies, which would be more than diversification, but not each company is 0.2% of the index, right?
Exactly.
They're based on their market cap. So the big behemoths of investing, the Apples, the Nvidia, the Amazon, they have an outsized weight on the index itself. So the biggest stock, the top 10 right now.
I am focused on meeting X goal, but it gets better. If you have specific check-ins with your, let's call this person your accountability partner or your accountability buddy, your chance of success, meaning that you actually will achieve that goal, increases to, take a guess, Tanya. Higher, 95%. I mean, that is pretty much like a given that you will hit that goal just by having a regular check-in. It's pretty impressive.
Risk is part of investing. That's why those who stick with their plan tend to get better returns over the long run. Just as a side note, since World War II, the S&P 500 has declined by 10% or more, so correction, defined as a 10% drop from the high, 24 different times. The next part I'm about to tell you is actually more important than that drop. The bull markets that followed those corrections are generally much stronger and last much longer. The 24 corrections took about 5 months before seeing the bottom. The recovery back to the same level, that same peak, took only about 4 months on average. And again, as a side note, you see one of these stock market corrections about every year, every 1.2 years since about 1980. Pretty common, pretty normal, just part of investing. What you need to do is really stick to your plan.
And women essentially retire with 30% less in wealth relative to men.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, that's a pretty big number.
It's a huge number.
A lot of it, and I sort of want to echo that we hear a lot of stuff out there that would suggest that this is how women spend, etc., that sort of contributes to the wealth gap. But the reality is the wealth gap for women is largely driven by the pay gap.
Yeah.
Women on average make 82 cents to the dollar of what a male earns. And over time, that number really adds up. It adds up to anywhere between $400,000 to $1.2 million in difference, and not a positive difference, a negative difference when it comes to building wealth.
It's a lot of money.
It's a ton of money, right? Like most people are trying to retire with $1 million, and that wealth gap is impacting us to the tune of anywhere between $400,000 to $1.2 million bucks. Yeah.
You can book a call to learn more about us, to learn more about how we help. It's free.
You can book a call with Tanya.
Yes, you can. My Calendly link is there on the website. So
I highly recommend that you do that. So we've given people some homework, right?
Yes.
Obviously,
go to wealthmore.net.
wealthmore.net, book a call with Tanya. We will share the data with you guys so you can look at it on your own to see the power of investing. But the key is to get started and stick with it and have solid advice along.
And so we have a new year in 11 days? I mean, I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions. You can start today.
You can start